Hello everyone, and I'm back with another Doctor Who action figure review from Character Options, another B&M exclusive, the second of 3 sets available in the current wave of action figures, and this is another History of the Daleks set. In fact, this time it's History of the Daleks number 15, celebrating Remembrance of the Daleks, a really classic, very fondly remembered serial. So let's dive straight into this, and I'll just give you my thoughts up front about the Daleks that have been selected. We have the Dalek Supreme, which is the black and silver Dalek one. I was sadly missing from my collection, so I'm really glad of this second chance to pick him up. This is fantastic. And then he comes with a standard Renegade grey Dalek Drone. To be honest, that is less exciting to me, but I'm glad they didn't opt for the Imperial Daleks. We just got 2 of them in the Revelation of the Daleks set, and we've had quite a few in recent years. As much as I love the Imperial Daleks, I don't really want another one. That being said though, I really wished they'd repackaged this with either the Destroyed Dalek, because they did one a few years ago, which is absolutely fantastic. This is a Dalek that is blown up and we see the mutants inside. Very, very cool. They could have also released a Special Weapons Dalek. Now for me personally, I already own that, so that wouldn't have been so exciting, but other people I know missed out on that, and that would have been tremendously fun to have included here. Or they could have even gone with Emperor Davros, which would have been my personal favourite choice, because I didn't get hold of that, and I love having Davros in my collection, so that would have been absolutely amazing. Sadly, this feels a little bit lazy once again, and a bit disappointing to me. But let's crack on by taking a look at the packaging. Now, by now, you will probably be familiar with this new branding that we've seen this year for the B&M exclusive Doctor Who sets. I really like this. This is a dramatic step up on the rather more bland, dull packaging that we've had over the last 4 or 5 years, which is very grey and blue based, and yeah, not particularly exciting. Not a lot of graphics and just kind of dull when put on display. This is a lot more bright and colourful. It's got a really brand new, fantastic 60th anniversary logo there, which I think looks great. We have an image of the TARDIS as well, and we just have a lot more colour here, and I think this looks really, really nice. This definitely pops, and this is very presentable. You can put this on display, and I think it's always going to be eye-catching, which is lovely. If we look at the side panel, there's not so much going on. We just have the logo again. It's fairly bland and boring, to be honest. I can't really say too much about this. And if we flip it, we have a little bit of information, a bit of bio about the story, about the characters and the props and different things that we use, and some interesting details here. Obviously, clearly just for fans, probably not that appealing to put on display otherwise, but a nice touch, an interesting approach to packaging. And if we look at the interior cardboard inlay, we can see that sort of new effect that we're seeing there with the blue light, strobing out, which looks pretty cool. I'm not sure whether it's meant to be the time vortex or the headlamp for the TARDIS, but either way, this is quite eye-catching. It's very colourful and nice. Now, as I said in the last video, would I prefer to have more of a diorama unique to that story? Absolutely. But if you're not going to do that and you're going to go for something a bit more generic, then this is probably the way to go forwards. So let's start off by taking a look at the Dalek Drone. In terms of the sculpt and the moulding, this is pretty much identical to most of the other Daleks we've had in recent years, certainly from the classic line. But there are some unique differences, as there always are, little tweaks which work in its favour. Now, this is a very matte paint job that they've gone for, which I think is in this particular version's favour. Most of the time they tend to be quite glossy. This one is very matte. The bumps and the actual grey tone are a matte paint that has a nice texture to it. This is quite different to most of the other Daleks I have in my personal collection, so I think that works pretty well. We do see some silver trimmings around the eye stalk. We see the actual eye beam in the centre of the stalk there, which is nice. Again, we have the grille around the body, but otherwise the colours are pretty much two-tone here. We have the black of the bumps and the matte grey of the dome and the skirt. The articulation is pretty standard for a classic Dalek, but in case you've never seen it before, there is a swivel at the top of the dome, there's a hinge at the top of the eye stalk, and then we have 2 ball joints in either arm. We have the gun arm, which again can rotate all the way around, which is nice and healthy, a good range of motion here, and then just the same, we have it on the plunger arm as well. And finally, underneath the Dalek, there are actually 3 wheels, 2 at the back and 1 at the front, which allows it to move forwards and backwards and move in different directions, and this works well for the most part, and is pretty standard stuff really, but it does the job. Okay, next up we have what is, in my opinion, the star of these two Daleks, the star of the set, which is the Supreme Dalek. I really love the paint apps on this particular Dalek. I love that he has orange ears, he has the white of the eye stalk there as well, but then he has this fantastic silver paint as well, which is really eye-catching. It's very glossy, and there is a wonderful glossy black paint to this Dalek. It's really reflective, it catches the light beautifully, and you can actually see your reflection in it. So I have to say, I think this is really striking, a very strong visual presence, and it looks absolutely glorious. I love all the individual little details, and I think this looks absolutely fantastic. So for me, this is definitely the star player. I think it looks wonderful. Now, before I sum up my feelings on today's set, I'm going to very briefly cover the History of the Daleks set 16 and 17, because I'm not actually picking this up. I'm not going to have these in hand to review, and there's a very good reason for that, because I already have these figures, and there's nothing really new here or especially enticing to get me to pick these up. I just don't see the need to do that. And I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with the History of the Daleks going forward, because a lot of them are kind of these Daleks, the gold Daleks. We don't have an awful lot to look forward to, apart from some very minor tweaks here and there. But hey, you could say that about the classic era, I suppose. I just think the classic era is a lot more colourful. Okay, so with that being said, obviously you can see the same branding, the same packaging to these Daleks, and of course the Daleks themselves. You can see here on screen what you're getting. You're getting a classic gold Dalek, and you're getting Dalek Sec, the black Dalek there. I don't think there's too much really to say. They have the modern sculpt, of course, and in the way of paint apps, I'm pretty confident you've probably seen or owned one of these already if you into the new series Daleks. So there's not really too much to comment on from my perspective. The only thing I would have said that would have made this more attractive to me is that if the Dalek, so the Dalek from the story episode called Dalek, if that makes sense, would have been cool if it was the mutant reveal Dalek, because they did release one way back when of that gold Dalek where actually you could pull the front off and you could see the mutant inside. It was a slightly different shape and the dimensions weren't quite accurate, but it was a really cool toy and one I never actually managed to get my hands on, and if they'd reproduced that here, I would have picked that up. Sadly that isn't the case, and what you see is what you get here. So for me it's an easy pass, but I appreciate if you're a new series fan and maybe you didn't get these first time around, then you probably want to pick this one up too. Okay then, so final thoughts for me for this set, the Remembrance of the Daleks. I'm going to give it 3 stars. I'll be honest with you, I do find it quite difficult to review the History of the Daleks sets because you are reviewing the same figure essentially multiple times over. There have been various tweaks here and there in terms of the sculpt across some of these sets, but for the most part it's the same figure with a different paint job each time, and that makes it a little bit tricky to kind of review in depth because really what you're marking it on is paint apps ultimately. Now what we have here is pretty cool. I do really like the Supreme Dalek. I think that definitely warrants the purchase of this set. I love the paint apps on this particular figure. I love that gold, that glossy paint job. I love the silver. I love how bright and colourful it is, and just really attractive and eye-catching. And of course, this is quite a rare one, a difficult one to track down. It's never been reissued, so very welcome to a lot of collectors like myself who missed out on this set first time round. As for the Dalek Drone, yeah, there's not much to say here. Yes, it's a slightly different shade of grey than we've had previously. I do really like the matte paint effect. I think that is really cool, gives it a very different texture, a different look, which I do appreciate. But that said, it's not the most colourful, the most interesting Dalek we've ever had in the line, and so it just feels like a bit of an add-on. And I think it's a bit of a waste of opportunity because there were some really cool variants for this particular story that would have gone over really well. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.